Can you hear me?
So, John, how did you get involved into the racing industry? Where did it start for you?
Excuse me. My initial plan was to, when I left school, was to go. I went to university and did vet science for 3 years, and I was pretty good at the vet and not much good at the science. So that sort of came to an abrupt end, and then I got a job. Colin McAlpine, who used to Eureka Stud in Queensland, I used to help them out a lot when I was studying and doing my courses, and he got me hooked up with, he introduced me to David Coles in Adelaide, who gave me a job working for them. It was Coles Bloodstock agency in those days, and they held the yearling sales in Adelaide. They were owned by Dalgety, the pastoral firm. So I started there, and I ran the pedigree department for about 3.5 years. Then I went off to England and worked for the British Bloodstock agency, and then came back after that and worked in Melbourne for Wright Stevenson, which was where, before the new complex, we used to sell in Flemington in those days. And then when Abcos started in Adelaide, Dalgety's bought Wright Stevenson, so I was working for Wright Stevenson, but had worked for Dalgety, so they shifted me back to Adelaide to run their operation there, and then after 3.5 years of that, I worked out that Dalgety's weren't going to last in the bloodstock industry, so I decided to start be a sort of freelance. And Bruce McLaughlin was the leading trainer here in Queensland at the time, and he said to me, "Look, I'll back you, and you can do all my work." And so I came home and started the business, and we got married at the same time. And yeah, it's been going on ever since. That was about 82.
82, so what, a bit better than 30 odd years in the game, huh?
Yeah. Well, I've been in it since I left university, basically. So it went about 1972.
Fantastic. So what's the secret to lasting so long in an industry that is quite fickle and one where, reputations are won and lost by, the types of horses that you're actually purchasing?
I don't know. I've enjoyed it. It's what I really enjoy doing it, so that helps. Wouldn't really do anything else. I wanted to be a vet originally, but I'm pretty pleased it's worked out this way. And it's just something I enjoy doing. I love it. And it is a hard, tough sort of a business, I guess, but I've never found it that way. I've always just put my head down and done what I had to do. And we've had pretty good years and average years, but I've been lucky. I've always had good people behind me and always worked with good people. So never had too many problems, to be honest. So I've probably been lucky, but I just put my head down and worked, and I was very lucky. I was taught by very, very good people. David Coles and Reg Angel in Adelaide. There was none better in the industry at that time. Probably John Inglis was about the only other one. So I was very lucky that way. So I had a great ground working in England and everything. Had a great grounding. So that helped.
And the vet science background, was it always the equine that you were more interested in when you?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it was always going to be horses.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Did you grow up around horses? Is it something that you just,
No, I saw a horse when I was about 5 or 6 or something. So I nagged my father and he bought me a pony, and away I went. That was it.
Yeah, wow. So do you sort of feel like having a good understanding of the vet equine put you in good stead from a bloodstock point of view?
Yeah. Well, it was the science that I had the trouble with, not the sort of veterinary part of it, the animal husbandry and the anatomy and all that was fine. I did really well in them. So, but I always had that. That was never a problem to me. And just knowing the anatomy and knowing a little bit about that side of it, it's been a help, yes. But it's not.
Tell us a little.
It's not very sorry. But it's handy to know those things, So.
Yeah, of course. Tell us a little bit about how your year works, because I think people will be quite flabbergasted to know what happens from January right through to November, December, really.
Yeah. Well, it's a long year. they start basically the 1st of January, the 2nd of January, we start going down the Gold Coast looking, inspecting Magic Million yearlings. So we do that for about a week or well, I've forgotten when the sale, but yeah, but depending on the timing of the sale, we usually do that for a week or 8 days or 9 days before the sale. We have the 4 or 5 days of the sale, and then on the Monday after the sale, we do the Magic Millions, and then the Monday after that, I jump on a plane and go to New Zealand. So, and then I do a week around the farms in New Zealand, and then a week before the sale looking at the horses at the complex, and then the week of the sale. So I'm there for 3 weeks. The day the sale finishes, I jump on a plane and go to Sydney, and then we do best part of a week looking at the yearlings for the classic sale, and then the sale's on. Come home for about a week, and then go down to Melbourne and well, Tasmania I did this year, and Melbourne, and then that's another couple of weeks. What's on after that? They have a sale in March at the Gold Coast here, and then we sort of get started on Easter yearlings. That's a couple of weeks work at least. And then the broodmare sale, and then we have a couple of smaller sales like the South Island sale in New Zealand, the Scone sale in Scone, and then all the broodmare and weanling sales start, and they're in end of April, May, and then they carry on to June at the Gold Coast and Melbourne. I think it's April in Sydney. And then the end of June comes, and then we have a pretty easy time of it in July and August, basically doing broodmare work and nominations, stallion nominations and stuff like that. And then middle September, I'd start going overseas to England and France for I'd be over there now under normal circumstances on my way. Head over to England and France for the yearling sales there. And I'm there for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then come back, have a few weeks here, and then go back for the broodmare sales in England and France. That takes me through to early December, and then we start working on the Magic Million yearlings. We go to Scone for a week, and a week before Christmas generally, and do a week there looking at yearlings for the Magic Millions before we look at the rest of them, because there's 1,000. So we do about 400 or 500 at Scone, and then the other 400 or 500 the first week of January. So that's roughly it.
So there's a bit going on there, fair to say, over a 12-month period. Your frequent fly points must be through the roof.
Yeah, they're pretty good. So anyway, can't use them at the moment.
Can't use them at the moment, though, can we? No. Yeah, you could buy bottles of wine for 2 million points or something. It'd be a great idea.
It's really frustrating at the moment because I got the English catalogues and they're all sitting in front of me, and usually I've had them bound and I'm ready to go, and it's annoying. But anyway.
Yeah, no, look, I'm sure everyone in the Zoom meeting tonight must be sick of Zoom meetings and Microsoft Teams. It'd be the next step for Bloodstock sales might be Zoom meetings if we can get the horses to stand still for long enough.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever resort to that. That came obviously this year with the Easter sale that was on, and I looked at it and I thought, you just can't do that. It was impossible. So I ended up actually buying one there that I knew, and then we bought I was able to get from here down to Scone to have a look at the Easter 2 session and the Scone yearlings, and that was fine. Excuse me, but you can't buy them unless you can see it. I've been brought up, going out and looking at them and looking at thousands at a time. It's just too hard to do it online.
So take us through a sale, Easter, Magic Millions, wherever it might be. How's the process work for you? You look at every horse in every sale? Pretty
much, yeah. When you get down to when I go to Scone or South Island, there's some pedigrees there that you couldn't buy, But basically, yes, so everything at the Magic Millions, everything at the Classic, everything in New Zealand, everything in Melbourne, Easter. So yeah, and probably the June sale at the coast, about 85% of them. So yeah.
So you're viewing how many horses a day, John, roughly?
I budget when I do my work out my days I have to be there and whatever. I budget on about 150 a day, but I have excuse me. I think the best I've done is about 210, 212.
Yeah, right. So that would consist of get the horse out, have a look, and within 30 seconds to a minute, sometimes you're saying thanks very much and move on, or you're spending up to a minute or two looking at ones you like, and then how many times do you go back to look at the ones that you condense? How do we go about condensing and shortlisting and vet checks and scopes, and then this is what we're going to bid on? So maybe take us through that process.
Yeah. Well, you look at firstly, say you just take one sale, Magic Millions. We look at every horse initially, work out which ones we like, and that's why you have to do. That's why I do 150 a day, because you whiz through them, and if you don't like them, then you give every horse a similar time, because it's rude to the vendors. They're parading their horse. They've done a great job producing them, and so it's rude to just say, "Oh, put it away. I don't like it." You just give them all the same time, but you then work out what horses you like initially, and then you whiz back through them again. So say you've got 1,000 horses at the Magic Millions, you'd probably end up with about 200 of those 1,000 to go back and have another look at, 150 to 200. So you go back and do that in a day and a bit, day and a half, or a day, or whatever, however long it takes. Probably takes a little bit longer, probably 2 days, day and a half, and work out which ones you really like. And then you decide what ones you can buy for what you've got to buy. So you've got orders to buy horses for sort of different people, then try and find the horse to suit the order and the person and whatever. And then we sort of try and get as many vetted as possible. It's expensive to get them all vetted, because you might end up with, at the Magic Millions, you probably end up with 100 horses you like, good enough to buy. So, it's expensive to get them all vetted, but you get the ones vetted that make the most sense initially. And then that dictates what you do after that. Then you decide to go back and have a third look at them, and then decide exactly where you're going to go with each horse. And then you might get a few more vetted if something fails that you particularly like. That you might have a second look at one, a third look at one that you think, well, that's not so bad after all. I find that you've got to look at them more than once. I do anyway. Maybe I'm dumb, but I like to look at them twice at least. And so by the time I go through the ring, I've seen them 3 or 4 times, and that's enough.
And you've made an interesting point that you sort of you can be right up until they pre-parade, in the ring, outside in the pre-parade before they go into the ring. Sometimes you can even decide whether to bid or not to bid just based on even at that very, very late point. Is that a gut feel for you?
Yeah, it's something that you when you've told someone you're going to bid on a horse for them, and all of a sudden you don't bid on it, it's a bit hard to explain. But it doesn't happen very often, I must say. It doesn't probably once in every second sale or something like that. But yes, sometimes the horses come into the yard, you think they're fine, they seem nice and relaxed and everything. They come in and they just don't handle it very well at all. They don't handle the stress of the situation. So they're not going to handle the stress of racing. So, there's a mental issue there. So we'll leave them alone, just step aside. But it's happened a few times. I know one horse I nearly walked away from was Sign-Off. When he came into the ring in England, he was on his toes. And oh my goodness, and he was, but he didn't sweat up. The ones that sweat up and carry on, they're a real worry. But when they're just playful and it's in their breed, then you can forgive it. But and he was like that. His father was like that, and he's like that, and they're both good, so it didn't matter. But I nearly walked away from him, which thank goodness I didn't.
And look, and tell us, I guess now the next step is what are the key ingredients from your point of view? What do you look for? What's the top couple of characteristics that are non-negotiables for you?
Oh, I like to. Well, bad legs are not negotiable, and you know, if it's extremely small or if they're extremely big, then you really can't take a chance with them. Smallish horses are fine, you know, there's plenty of good ones. But bad legs, really, when you're buying for other people and you're buying for trainers and whatever, you can't, you know, bad conformation, you know, small faults are not, you know, you don't worry too much about that, but major conformation faults are just a complete no-no.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at them, it's, you know, they buy a certain sire out of a certain mare. So they're all going to be different because they're all, you know, even if they buy the same sire, they're going to be out of a different mare. So they all should look different and do look different. So you've got to be able to look through that. That's the most important point. And they've got to show the good attributes of the sire and the dam and obviously conformation, athleticism, that's all nice, you know, the way they move, the way they carry themselves. They don't have to be great big walkers or anything like that. They just have to have that look about them that looks that they look athletic, and that's portrayed through the stallion and the mare, you know, the fam. Sometimes you see horses that you've seen their families for the last 30 years, and they all the good ones look a certain type, or you know, a lot of the family look a certain type. And you come along and you see one, it doesn't look like the father, but it looks like the family, you know, and it doesn't look like the mother or the mother's side, but it looks like the family. So they go, oh, that's all right, good as gold. Whereas some people would say, oh, it doesn't look like his father, so forget it, you know. So there's all those little things, you know, that all those crazy things go through your head when you're looking at them, and half the time you don't know whether you like them or not, you know. It is really, that's why you've got to have a second look and you know, decide, make a decision. At some stage you're going to make a decision, but some of them stand out, and they're the ones that make all the money, the ones that go to the sales and top the sales and make all the big money. They're the standouts that anyone could pick. You know, really, you know, you don't have to be Einstein to pick some of those horses. They're well bred, and they're very good looking. You know, so that's. But you've got to try and find something else that you can. Yeah, because value is the key to its buying value, really.
I was going to say that would probably, and I've spoken to you previously about this, is the bit that you get the most kick out of. You know, example, Prince of Penzance. You know, you bought him for 40 or 50 grand in New Zealand, and he goes and wins a Melbourne Cup for Darren Weir. Huh? Yeah,
that gives me more pleasure than buying a you know, $300,000, $400,000 horse that wins a stakes race or something. You know, but it does. It's great fun. You know. Buying value, I do. I've been with a long time, and some people go there just to want to buy, spend as much as they can and get the big number horse. But when you look at the figures, a lot of them don't stack up, do they?
No, it can go bad very quickly.
Yeah.
John, you buy for a lot of different buyers. You've got a huge Hong Kong base with David Hall, John Size. In Australia, you bought a lot for Darren Weir, who and that's how we were introduced to you through Darren, of course. And you bought some horses for us. You know, a few years ago, Benny Goes Berserk and Artie D2 in conjunction with Jeremy Rogers. That just when we first started getting involved with you, and you know, you bought some nice horses for us since. How did it evolve? How did you get in you know, through your clients? How do you choose those clients and the people you want to work with as opposed to the people you don't want to work with?
Well, initially I sort of started off with, you know, like a Bruce McLaughlin, for example, just worked for one trainer, and as things have evolved, in John Size, I've been buying Johnny's horses since he started training, which is a long time ago. You know, he was training at Deegan here in Brisbane, and he's been a friend that long. We were talking 40 years or more. So most of them have been with me for a long, long time. Most of the people I buy for, you know, Darren came along because Johnny and David Hall went to Hong Kong, and I didn't actually work with a trainer for some years before Darren came, probably 5 years or so. I was asked by a couple, but I didn't want to work with them. But then Darren came along, and he was recommended by a friend, and then I asked other friends, and that was a great association, you know. And since then, Tony Gollins, or at that time, Tony Gollin also approached me, and he's terrific to work with, you know, and he's a really good young trainer and a really good bloke. So, but these days it's more about the people, you know. If someone, most the people, as I say, they've been with me for years, and I basically concentrate on the ones that've been with me for years, and that sort of thing. I don't really take on too many new people these days.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we're very lucky to have you choosing for us, which is terrific. And I think we were talking about this the other day when I were discussing the international imports. It's really important to let you do your job as the agent, the trainer do his job as a trainer, and us as the syndicator, bringing people into the fray and doing what we do. And followed you around numerous times at sales, and I think by the time we get to horse number 80, they start looking like a merry-go-round horses to me. But it is important to let you do your thing, and Jeremy when Jeremy's picking the horses as well. It's because that's what you do and that's what you're good at. Yeah,
well, it's the same in any business. You have people doing in different areas of the business, don't you? And if the finance bloke wants to if it's a trucking business and he wants to drive the trucks, well, it's not going to go too well, the business, is it? So it's everyone's got to do their job, and the more you let people do their job, the better they do it. If they're good at what they do and they're genuine people who are not going to mess you around, then and they're the only ones you choose anyway. So if you're going to choose a trainer, you choose a good trainer who's honest and look after you. So let him do his thing. So it's the same with everything. That's what we do.
So tell us a bit about Tattersalls and a bit about your successes over there. I mean, too many horses for me to remember to name. One I keep forgetting about, Pursuit Stallone, clearly doing some great things at stud at the moment. He was a fantastic racehorse, but Furion, 50 Stars, Sign Off, Grand Promenade, who's going around at the moment for you, and you've kept a share in him. Tell us a bit about how you go about selecting those international horses and bringing them out here, and maybe some examples about how magic a place obviously Newmarket is, and the type of horses that come out of there.
Yeah, well, as I say, I worked there in the mid-70s, for British Bloodstock Agency. I got to realise I enjoyed that immensely. That was the best part of my sort of my early days, and then the industry was working in England was fantastic, and seeing all those wonderful horses and the wonderful pedigrees that go with them. The families there have been around for hundreds of years, so they're so much better than ours. So that's sort of how it basically started. I just got this love affair with the European horses, and then I went back when I started my own business and started going back there buying mares, but it was basically just a broodmare thing. But buying mares for people, just a few at a time, not many at all. And then Mackay Diva's mother came along, and so the numbers picked up a bit. And then how the yearling started, I was approached by, we'd also bought racehorses. David Hall and I bought 3 or 4 racehorses, Zerpor and Karazi. We bought there in England, and with Luke Lillingston to bring out, and they did really well for what they cost. But those sort of horses became very, very expensive. Anyway, when I got tangled up with Darren, Sandy McGregor, one of his owners, came to me. Well, Darren said Sandy wants to buy a racehorse in England, so he came to Brisbane and on business, and we had a coffee, and he said, "Look, I want to buy a racehorse in England." I said, "Well, do you know what they cost? Because you're talking, 3, 4, 500,000 pounds, for these things." We were paying 100 back in those days, the days when we bought Zerpor. And he said, "Oh God, no," he said, "that's a bit much." And I said, "Well, look, I've always had a hankering for buying a yearling or two over there and giving them a try, especially the stayers, because our stayers are pretty weak, and they, when they do come out here, they clean up." So that was back in 2011. So and Mackay Diva, when we bought her out as a yearling. She was a March yearling, so she was actually younger than the ones we buy now. And she came out, flew out, and didn't worry her. She was, she took a while, but certainly didn't set her back. So I said to Sandy, I wouldn't mind having a crack at buying a couple of staying yearlings over there and bring them out, and they'll be out of season, but what the heck, you know, we'll just miss the derbies basically, and that's all. He said, yeah, that's a good idea. We'll give it a crack. So he got Jerry involved, and they said buy 2. So that was in 2011. I was only able to buy the one. I bought sign off. So I didn't go back. I think I went back. I didn't buy anything the following year or the year after that. And then sign off came good. And they said, well, you better get back there and buy a few more. So I bought a horse called Last Week. He runs around in handicaps. He's a useful horse. He was only 27 grand, I think I paid for him. And then another horse by High Chaparral I paid 54. He won 2 races in the country, but he wasn't much good and he hurt himself. So anyway, that was the following year. And then, not the following year, but a few years later. And then the following year I bought 2. I bought 50 Stars and Furion, the 2 of them. And that was incredible. And then the following year I only bought 1, which was Grand Promenade. And then I bought 4 the year after that. I think one of them's raced so far. And last year we bought a few, and it's worked out well because I bought one last year for Jerry Ryan and in France, and it had its first start at Longchamp about 3 weeks ago and won easily. So he kept it over in France. So that was good. It's been a good exercise. And then now Danny O'Brien sort of cottoned onto it, and he's got a guy in England who bought Russian Camelot. You know, who's a great horse.
Russian Camelot, yeah, I think I know. I've heard of him.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, John, in 2018, speaking of Camelots, you purchased over in France for us a Camelot filly.
That's right.
And I think it was about 3:30 in the morning when I rang you in France and said, John, have you got an owner for this horse? And you said, it's yours if you want it. And I said, we want it. So I think I was running around in circles in the lounge room saying, we've got a Camelot. And then a week later, or not even a week later, 3 days later, John rings me and says the horse has got a blood disorder or what was it, John?
Yeah, it was that pyroplasmosis. When I bought her, because what happens, most of them are tested because they're in France. It's very rare in England, but there's the occasional case of it in Ireland, but it crops up in France, especially in the south of France. It's borne by mosquitoes, ticks, and in the south of France they get on. It's carried by the tick, and it's passed on by the tick. Anyway, they have it in France, and normally they test them before the sale for this pyro. And she wasn't tested, so I got it. And so you can do them afterwards, and the sale's subject to that. So I had it tested, and then she came up positive. So we sent her back. And that was the problem. That's the same thing that happened. That horse in New Zealand that tested positive to pyro. And that's why they've had all this stuff. You know, the flights were held up for a few weeks. They come across. That's what horse came into New Zealand, and it had tested negative over in France. Came to New Zealand. They was about to fly to Australia to go to stud, and a mare actually, and she came up positive, which was very unusual, but.
Yes. What would have been? She'd be the same age as Russian Camelot now. Who knows if she'd been any good? But it would have been great having a Camelot filly.
Yeah, she was probably. Well, I knew you wanted to buy one, and I just bought her, and she wasn't very expensive, and no, she's a lovely moving filly, and anyway.
Yes, the rest. That's what happens in the racing game. But anyway, we've had a crack at it once. We nearly got there, but we're going back again in a week or two's time. So, John, just tell us, you've got somebody on the ground that you're working with there. Clearly, you can't be there as you mentioned earlier. Just walk us through the process for the next couple of weeks, because Book 1 starts on the 8th.
Tuesday.
Yeah, next Tuesday. The 6th to the 8th, Book 1. And then Book 2 on the 12th to the 14th of October. Yeah,
the Monday, the following Monday. Yeah, the process now, normally I'd be there, but I've got 2 chaps have worked with for many, many years. They bought Curtin and, Karazi and Zerpor for us, and various other mares over the years privately, and I've done work with them for a long time. It's a fellow called Luke Livingston and Lincoln Collins, and Lincoln will be doing most of the work because Luke's now took over his father's stud, so he's actually selling. So Lincoln will be doing most of it. He's a very, very good judge. He's actually Tattersalls' American representative. He's English, but he lives in Kentucky, and he's actually Tat's representative in America. Really decent guy, very good judge of a horse. They've had a lot of success. So he is actually flying. He's flown across from America to do the sale, not just for me. He's got other things to do there as well. He's been selling 5 or something for a client in America, and he did his quarantine in Istanbul, Turkey. Can you believe it? On the way over, he did. He had the option to do quarantine in a different country, and this Turkey was one of the countries. So he went and stayed in Istanbul for 10 days, and didn't have to stay in the hotel. It was quite amazing. Anyway, he's doing all the legwork for us, and then he'll liaise with me, and we'll be using the vet that I normally use in Newmarket, who I'll be talking to tomorrow night. And he'll let me know he knows what orders we have, sort of the price ranges and the type of horses. He'll do a list of all that, and he'll give that to me when he's finished looking at them, and we'll sort of take it from there. You know, some of them they'll have photos of some of them online. I guess I'm not sure, but the English are not really good at all that stuff. You know, they're a bit slower than that. It's the same with the X-rays and everything. Our sales, just about every horse is X-rayed, but over there, book 1 will be X-rayed, but not book 2. So we've got to go and get all that done. It doesn't take very long. The vet's there. They have to do it all the time, so they can get a set of X-rays done in about half an hour. It's amazing. Yeah, so they'll do a list, and we'll sort of sit down and discuss with them what they think it'll make, and then away we go.
Great. So I guess what we won't be doing over the next couple of weeks is calling you at 10 o'clock in the morning, because you'll be on night shift duty then. Yeah,
well, I won't be up every night. These guys know what they're doing. I don't. I'll just unless I need to be talking to them when the horse goes through the ring. I'll just give them a figure and let them do their job.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to stop rabbiting on, and I'm going to open it up to the group, because we do, John, we've got, just for your information, got some owners here who are keen to ask you some questions. We've got quite a myriad here. I know there's a few Hill Hauntas owners in here as well, so Maddie might want to ask some questions with Brenda, etc. And Gracie, he probably had a horse that was sold to Hong Kong that John would have picked too. Heavenly Thought, I'm pretty sure. Gracie, is that right? I have to unmute you, mate, in a sec. But anyway, I'm going to throw it open to everybody. So if you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself, or and then we can sort of do it one at a time. That'd be good, just to go from there. So anyone got any questions? Maddie, you want to go first?
Yeah, if I could. So John, if you're buying for several owners at the sales, does it ever happen that you've got the same clients with the same budget looking for the same horse? And if so, how do you decide who you're going to purchase for?
I don't. Yeah, that's funny. People ask me that question quite a lot. I don't. I let them work it out. I put them together and let them decide. It's not my decision. It's something I have. If the two people want a horse, it's for them to decide. If they can bid on it. If one of them gives me an order, obviously straight to buy the horse before the other one, well, I'm duty bound to do that. But it's usually better to get them together and talk about it. I can't decide. I can't make that decision.
So one more while I've got you. So pro punters will kind of look at their tips, their losing tips, and try and evolve and improve for next time. Do you do that as a buyer? Do you look at the horses that you have bid on and haven't been successful with and kind of follow those, just to see what the results have been?
No, I don't do it that way. When I'm sort of watching the races, if they win, if they're 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, whatever, and I know they've been through a sale, I've got my catalogues behind me here, and I go and check them out and see what I thought of them. So that's the ones that win. But I don't follow every horse that I bid on. No, the ones I buy, I do when I can, because some of them go off and no one tells me where they are or what they're doing. So I've got to try and track them down.
Thanks, John.
Anyone got any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. John, it's Rob here from Roll the Dice. Thanks
Rob.
for joining tonight.
Yeah, mate.
Just the question I had was, I can remember when you were lucky enough to buy Hill Haunters for us up at Magic Millions, the Time for War out of Shadow Grande, and I can remember you telling me that you felt like it reminded that yearling reminded him of his grandsire of Schnitzel. So does that happen often, like where potentially horses can look like their grandparents?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was sort of alluding to before when I was saying they can look like, you're looking like the family, or that there's something in the pedigree, whether it's a female line or this. I didn't mention the sire line, but yes, if they, they can look like their grandfather, and if their grandfather's as good as Schnitzel, it's probably a pretty good thing they do look like him. So it's not a negative anyway. So they're the little things I was sort of alluding to earlier, that you see things that I suppose you're trying to find some reason to give yourself a bit of confidence to go ahead. But anyway,
that's right.
And I suppose, John, that's what comes with experience too, isn't it? And years in the trade. Don't choose a young bloodstock agent who hasn't seen generations of horses come through.
Yeah, that's it's an advantage. But it's not the all end all. It's the, I think I bought Planet Ruler when I was about 30, or 20, even not even that. But yeah, look, it does help, and especially when you get the bigger numbers and everything, it does help to know the families.
Any other questions from anyone? Catherine, you want
to? Yes, please.
Oh, sorry, Brent, do you want to go first? You ready to go?
Yeah, Mr. Foote. Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Mr. Foote, may I ask what led you to choose Heavenly Thought at the Magic Millions sale out of book 2 or 3?
Yeah, he was in book 2. He was in the second session of the Magic Millions. I think it was, which was quite strange because he was well bred, and he to turn up in that. I think it was a second. It wasn't June, was it? It was a Magic Millions in January. Yeah, and I really liked it. But he was a very late foal from memory. If I think I'm right, he was a very, very late foal, like an early December foal.
Small.
And I said to the vendor, and I know the vendor, I know them all, but I said to him, he's a nice horse, this. And I said, he got a good pedigree. What's he doing in book 2? He said, well, he's a late foal, and they just thought he'd get lost, so they stuck him in the second session. So I said to Weary, I think we probably buy this one all right. We had to pay more than we thought, but luckily we did. But I thought I'd give you a bit cheaper than that even. So.
Well, mate, I must say, mate, and did you look at the dam side at all, going back to, previous Magic Millions winner in Mimi LeBrock? Did that come into the equation, or did you simply like the horse on type?
No, on type, and he did have a good pedigree. I think he's a half brother to a stakes winner, and I love the stallion.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and
brilliant.
That was in the second hand, so he had a bit of speed there, and he was a nice horse. Like he was a backward horse, but he was a very good, very nice horse, and I've had a bit of luck with them, so you think. So I just love the breed. They just get this look about them, and he was like that, and that's why I said to Weary, he's a December foal. We'll buy him for 60 or 80 grand. Anyway, we didn't, but I'm glad we went. Weary, he was happy to go a bit more, so worked out well.
And those type of horses, obviously, we're willing to give them plenty of time to mature, and take him through the education progress also helps with the right type of trainer. I guess that's what we're doing here at Roll the Dice with these horses, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The trainer they go to is so important, and certainly some trainers suit some horses, there's no doubt about that. And if you can marry up the right horse to the trainer, and Darren was just ideal for those sort of horses. He was you could buy 1 million of them. You just go there and buy 100 of them if you could for Darren, those sort of horses. And that filly, there was a Say You Think filly I bought him in the June sale. She was a similar thing. She was out of a group 2 winner, I think we paid 60 grand for her, and she won a Group 2 race in, I've forgotten her name.
Yeah.
But
I remember the dam. I remember the dam because I used to back her all the time, mate. And at 60k, I thought you just got an absolute bargain. Yeah. And then it ended up at Weary Stable and won a few group races. So I actually looked at her in the catalogue myself and thought, what a ridiculously cheap price for a So You Think. So I forget her name now, but she did win 2 or 3 groups, didn't she? I wonder what she sold for as a broodmare, eh?
Oh yeah, I think she was about $500,000 or something like that. But yeah, she was a similar sort of thing. She was a little same sire, a little bit backward, and not the right trainer, and away you go. Some trainers would sort of go too soon with them, and so the trainers really, for my job, the trainers so important where they go. You know, when I worked with Bruce McLaughlin and John Size and David Hall. And then Darren and Tony Gollan. They're all really, really good trainers, and they've been part of my success. You know, there's no 2 ways about it. They 50% of the success is due to the fact that they went to those sort of people.
Sorry to cut you off, Grace. We just got another question, mate. Catherine, did you want to ask John something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask John. So when you've got your shortlist at a particular sale, from what you said, a lot of the skill that you're bringing to this is valuing each yearling, say if we're talking yearlings. And so you've got a band, a price band, or are you looking for, okay, this is worth up to X, and then you're looking to hopefully pick up, you know, something that slipped through the net, or a horse that would seem like a great deal if you valued it, and then it's not making that in the bidding.
The hardest part of the whole process is valuing them. You really don't have, you know, it's a bit different to a property auction. You really don't have much idea of what they're going to make. If you've got a nice horse, you've got to hope that they might like the pedigree or something, you know, because a nice horse generally sells well. So the price thing's very hard. I'm lucky I've got a few of my clients, they just tell me to go to X or Y, and that makes life a bit easier. Or some of them are there with me, like Tony's offered. Darren was mostly there at the sales with me, so we just go along until we sort of, till we got to whatever he said, and that was it. You know, another really good client of mine I've been buying for many, many years. He doesn't give me any instructions. He just says, when you start feeling uncomfortable, stop bidding, you know. So, and that's really, you know, they're so hard to value. But you do know when the bidding gets going, you get to a point where you think this is too dear now. You know, this is, you know, there comes that point. It might be 100,000, it might be 200, it might be 50. But you think that's just too much, you know. And you usually have a bit of an idea before you start where you know what they're going to make, especially at that figure, those figures around the sort of 30 to 150 or 120. But then when you get over that, you know, you can be 100 grand out, you can be 50,000 out, you know. So, but you just, in that case, you get to a point where you say, well, this is enough. And unless you're tied to a figure, if you're tied to a figure, well, that's it, of course.
And what about the sex differential between, say, buying fillies and colts? Because the fillies obviously can have residual value if they're well bred, they look good, and even if they're not much chop on the racetrack, you can do something with them. Whereas obviously the colts, once they're gelded, they've got to earn their keep as a racehorse. Yeah. So is the prize money even across the sexes in terms of the racing market here?
Oh yes, yeah, they all race for the same money.
Yeah. So and is it about 50-50, the foals that come out?
Pretty much, I guess. I haven't looked at the figures, to be honest. So I don't, but I would imagine so. But fillies are good. Fillies are good because if you do have a pedigree, you can go to Easter sale or one of the major sales in Melbourne or Magic Millions. And filly with a really nice pedigree, you can buy her for what her residual is nearly sometimes if you're lucky. And then you might, if they buy a top stallion, you don't. But if they are by a top stallion, then you might pay. So some of these people who pay a lot of money for it, they might pay 400,000 for a filly at Easter. but she's actually worth 200 if she doesn't race. So, or, 150, 200 if she doesn't race. So that's it's a bit of a comfort bit of a to have. And yeah, fillies are good. They can be great investments, especially if they run and get a bit of black type. They can go from that filly that we were talking about, the So You Think, was 60 grand, and I think she made about $500,000 or something when they sold her. That's it's happened a few times, I think. But and she actually had quite a good pedigree, and even that little filly that won I forgot the name. She was by Monaco Consul.
Tiamo Grace.
Tiamo Grace. I paid 40 grand for her, 45 grand for her for Darren, and he won the Wakeful with her.
Wakeful, yeah.
And I don't know what they got. They fiddled it. They messed up the selling of her but anyway, I think she may end up making 300,000 or 400,000. But she actually had her family. She was by Monaco Consul, but her family on the dam side was very good. She was the same family as the Costa Largo and Flying Spur, and it's done very well out here, that family. So the pedigree was quite good. So she was always going to have some residual. So that was it's funny how that you can go and buy a filly quite cheaply with a good family, but they don't like the stallion. That's the buying public can be a little bit fickle like that. It's based around stallions, and some people buy the same type, and they don't like some stallions, they like others. But the female line's half the pedigree, so it's got to have half the input.
Yeah, I think the thing that we were introduced to a lot with Darren was, let's not worry too much about the page. Let's buy on type and conformation and the horse itself. That's where you're going to find the value. Now, and that's all great for a trainer and a Bloodstock agent to go and buy the nicest type they can find. From a syndication point of view, it makes it very hard to sell horses without the Mercedes badge on it and putting a Holden badge on it. But that's our job to convince people that we're going through the right checks and balances, we're choosing the right experts to pick the right horses, and we get the value by buying the lesser known stallions or the first season stallions. And unfortunately, we can't buy those stallions down the track because they generally tend to do well early, and they're out of our price range down the track.
Well, that's the thing. If you're going to buy value, you can't sort of, and you've got to buy you want to buy a nice horse, so you can't always buy the top stallions. But the female, you can buy a good female. I'll tell you a classic example is Trust in August. He was a lovely horse. He was really nice. Well, he was in the second session of Melbourne. I couldn't believe it. I said to Adam, what are they doing putting him in here? And he said, keep the faith. But he's out of a really, really, his mother's by Stormcat, and he's out of a really top class family. They brought it out from England, and very good pedigree, and he's, if that horse had been by a successful stallion, he would have made Easter and probably made $500,000, Anyway, he was another one. He was 45 grand. And that's because of the stallion. So, little things like that you can work your way around sometimes if you're lucky.
Yeah, look, I remember, Steve having conniptions when we bought the Time for War for 150,000, and we sort of thought, geez, how are we going to do this? And Rob was spot on. Footy said he looks if he was by Snitzel, he would have been $500,000. And as it turns out, he wins a Magic Millions maiden for us. He wins a Group 3 and gets sold to Hong Kong for ridiculous money, and we're all having a great time. So, and that's about. It is about our owners having trust in John and Jeremy picking the right horses, and feeling confident that you're not guaranteed that you're going to get a great result, but you're guaranteed that you're going to have a better opportunity of getting to the track and getting a decent horse by these guys doing what they do best. Yeah,
that was an interesting case, because I remember you coming to me and saying you wanted to buy one, and I said, well, this is a bit of a struggle here, because there were so many first year sires and so few proven ones.
Yeah. And
it was so we had to basically go for a first year sire, and it worked out well. But it was just, and the Magic Millions, they like taking those first year sires because they sell well, but it's not something we normally do. But he was lovely. He was a cracking horse. But anyway.
Yeah, no, it worked out well.
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys?
If you had 200,000, you would have got yes. Yeah.
Only 50 short.
he was in the box. I bought him in the same draft, in the same.
From Kitchener as well, it was,
He was
wasn't it?
Kitchener, yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
I've got a quick question. So some people might not realise, John, that the majority of horses, probably almost all of them in Hong Kong, are geldings. You know, what's the feeling over there? Is it because it's the weather? Is it because they train them differently in kind of concrete jungles? Why is it so much geldings, not fillies, in Hong Kong?
I think the filly. I think it's. I think the fillies sort of fret a bit more than the geldings. Even the colts are hard to keep as colts there because they're locked up and they get a bit above themselves.
And then they geld them.
Yeah, and even a lot of the geldings don't like Hong Kong. You know, you can take the best horse. You can buy a really good group winner and take it up there and can't win a race because they just don't like the place and they don't do well. And the fillies are probably more so like that. You know, and fillies do that here. You know, sometimes trainers have to go and train them out of a panic because you know, that's what they like. They have tried racing fillies there. They have had over the years. They have had quite a few fillies race there, but it obviously wasn't successful enough. So they don't do it. They don't do it at all anymore.
Yeah,
I just think they combination of a few things, but basically they're locked up all day and it just doesn't. The fillies spread. You know, they just don't like it.
And then the knock-on effect to that would be that then the colts are probably worth a little bit more money at a yearling sale than the fillies. Would that be a fair assessment?
Oh, definitely. Colts are harder. Nice colts are harder to buy than fillies. You know, there's always that market there. The Asian market for colts is always there. It's up to, you know, it used to be strong up to 100. Now it's strong up to 200. You know, just for trade colts. You know, just for horses that they buy. Break them in, get them going, and sell them on, and they're paying up to sort of 200,000 or so for those sort of horses now, which is incredible. You know, it's makes it hard.
Any other questions, guys, before we finish up? That hour's gone quick. Well, they watch the second half of the footy. I think score check, Rob. You're a John man, 26-25.
Yeah, Port Adelaide kicked a goal after the halftime siren to go in front.
There you go. Port Adelaide just up, mate. Well, any other? Yeah, that's right. John's wife, Port Adelaide supporter. So, and John's a Brisbane supporter. So we've got to take you guys on tomorrow night. The Tigers versus the Brisbane Lions. Guys, thank you. Sorry, last chance. Any more questions? Everyone's comfortable? Oh, Brett, yep.
One more.
Mate.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Foote, your association with Mr. Bruce McLaughlin and Thornhill Park.
Yeah.
Played a major part in your career. I've grown up watching him down the road. I only live a kilometre down from Thornhill.
Oh, right.
Yeah, beautiful part of the world. Bruce was huge, and I'm guessing were you a lot to do with some of those horses, like With Me and I can't remember some of them, but some absolute beauties. Were you involved in the choosing of those horses?
Yeah, not her, but quite a lot of his better horses. Yeah. I think the first really good horse I got him was Tattersalls. He was a champion miler in the country.
Yeah.
He was a good horse.
Right.
So, we had a lot of fun with Bruce.
Yeah, brilliant. I was just, sort of, he put Queensland racing on the map, and I'm guessing that you're a big part of that through the choices of the horses and so forth. Hopefully you can do that with Mr. Golan.
Yeah. Well, Tony's good. He's going well. He doesn't need me, but he's going very well. But we've got some nice horses in the stable at the moment, and especially some nice fillies, and a really good crop of 2-year-olds. He won't run them early. He's sort of he's resisted the temptation to sort of get them up and get him going for the Magic Millions last year and this year, and it's paying dividends because they're going very well. Mostly, for quite a few fillies for this guy who breeds, but he's got a really nice crop this year, and he's got some lovely horses that he hasn't run yet. So, yeah, he's doing really well.
Thank you.
Good young trainer.
Very good. That's more I'd like to ask there, John. Thanks a lot for answering those questions, mate. I know they're a bit off cue.
No problem.
That's not like you, Gracie, being a bit off cue. All right, guys. Well, look, I just wanted to wrap up. John, thank you very much for the hour, mate. We really do appreciate it. You do an amazing job for Roll the Dice. We're obviously going to be active over there in the UK. So if anyone is interested in, or if you've already registered your interest, Rob, couple down there with the RTD hat on is the man to get in contact with. We're excited. As I said, we nearly got the Camelot over here, but we didn't. But I'm sure we won't be getting a Camelot for our budget now. But if we can get one half as good as Russian Camelot, I'm sure we'll be happy. And you know, our brief to John's very simple. You know, pick what you like, filly or colt, it doesn't matter. You know, if the filly might be better value, then we go for a filly. But it's all about, you know, what the guys do and we get them here and get them to the right trainers and keep you guys, you know, informed as best we can all the way through the process and let people do what they do. So, John, thanks very much. Thanks for everything you've done for us to date. And
thanks for having me.
We can get a nice one.
Yeah, we'll do our best, and we'll be guided by what the boys like and working from there. But yeah, there are always good young sires coming on. You know, they're just starting their careers and they're doing well, and before they become famous like Camelot. So, you know, we're able to buy Camelots in the past when he was starting off. So there'll be something else there in that range. So we'll see what they like.
John, what's your thoughts on Harry's Angel and his introduction into Australian breeding and what he's doing overseas? Will you be looking at any of him?
Yeah, well, we're here. They're sprinters, so we've mostly been looking at the sort of middle distance staying breeds over there because they win here. But and his progeny will sell pretty well. They're not. I don't think there's any in this year, but probably next year they'll be around. But he was a very good horse, gee. He was a great horse. But mostly what we're looking at is sort of the middle distance stayers because they're easy to buy because the nicer. England's going like Australia. It's going more 2-year-olds, more sprinting, all that sort of stuff. You know, which I'm
finding his service fees very affordable in Australia. So I'm thinking, you know, within a couple of years, you're hardly going to get the 14 grand service fee or whatever in 2 or 3 years' time here, if he even stays in this country.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's what happens. Well, that's, you know, you go back to Camelot. He stood here, and he didn't get enough. They didn't really support him well enough. So the bloke, the head of Coolmore, that owns Coolmore, said, "Well, if they don't want him, we won't bring him back." So that's what happens. But it's
Makes sense.
We lose
Thank
out
you.
from it. Very good. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Let's get back to the third quarter. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks, John.
And
Thank you.
one more week next Thursday. We've got Mick Price on next Thursday night. So one more week before we finish up with the Zoom calls, and hopefully we can get you guys in again next week. Cheers. Take care. Be safe.
Thanks,
John. Bye.